What's up everybody, and welcome to the 20th Java tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to be talking about the keyword this in Java. Now there's a few reasons that you can use this in Java. And some of it you'll use more often than others you won't really use, so I'm going to try and hit on what's important. So I'm going to have two classes here, our main class and the person class, and in this video we're going to be basically creating an object that's a person and has the values of a person, specifically the name. So we'll have the string to hold the name, and I'm also going to be commenting to help better understand a little bit of what's going on. Alright, so we have the name, which is a private string. We're going to need a constructor to set the values. And for this constructor, we want to take a string name, and this is one of the reasons why you're going to use this. So you'll notice that my instance variable is named name, and this argument is also named name. So typically what you would do is go name equals name, right? Like imagine if this was well, we'll leave that name and we'll put this as text, not test. There we go. So what you would do is do that. So name equals text, right? So you would set this variable, this instant variable, to what's in the arguments or the parameter, right? So this value would get set to name. However, oftentimes in Java, people will have the same name of your variable as what you're trying to set your, or as your argument as what you're trying to set the variable to. So how you fix this problem, because this won't do anything, right? Name does equal name all the time, no matter what. So it doesn't do anything or set anything. It says right there, it has no effect. So what you do is you use the keyword this. So you use this.name equals name. And what that's doing, it's differentiating which name is which. So when you see this is saying this.name, so that means this variable. It's like a reference to this specific object and the variable name. And then this name right here is just the argument. So this helps, or this is what differentiates the name from each other. Because without the this, it's just going to be, it's not going to do anything. But you use this dot as a reference to the object. And we can do this, we can output to the screen person created, and we will have plus name. Alright, so, and if I want to, let me put a comment here real quick. Boom. Now, if we want to create an object, all we have to do is call our class, create our object. We'll call this person1 equals new person. And then you'll just put in inside the string. So if we run this, it'll say person created Andrew. So it's going to have the name. And you'll see, because we put in the string here, that string went into right here, which is the variable, and then, or the argument, and then this referred to the object and the variable of that object, which is right there, and then set it to the argument that I passed in, which was the string Andrew. And then we displayed what the variable was for that, so name. So another way that this is used is if you have like a default constructor, or it's like an alternate constructor. And to use an alternate constructor, it's the same thing. It's similar to method overloading, how you're doing the same exact thing. You're changing the arguments basically. And within that alternate constructor, we want to set the name of this object to its default value, to a default name. So how you would do this is type this, and then you put your whatever value you want to put in here. So default name. So what this constructor is doing is you're creating an object of the person class, and then this is calling the other constructor, and it's passing this string into it. That's what this is doing. This constructor is calling this constructor with this default value. And I'll show you how that works. So we'll have, let's just copy that, person2, and then what we'll do is not put anything into the arguments. So before, if I tried to create this without this alternate constructor, it would give me an error because it needs to have some sort of value within its parameters to create the object. But now that I have this, what it's going to do is call this one, so it calls this constructor because I didn't give it any arguments, I didn't give it a string for the name, and then it used this object and then called the second constructor with this string, default name. So that's two different ways to use this. The first one being to differentiate between instance variables of an object, like what you're trying to set, and then also the if the argument is the same, it helps differentiate those. And then the second, this is, it's used in an alternate constructor, and it's used to call the other constructor with this object's data or info. And this, in this case, sets the default name of this object. That way, because you need to have some sort of default value if you're going to have a name attached to an object or a variable attached to an object, you need to have some value. So this would set the default value. Okay, so the third way that this can be used is when you're passing an object's info in as an argument. So like you can use an object as an argument instead of, like, see, we have strings, integers, doubles. You can actually use an object. And let me copy this comment here. So how that works is I'm going to have a setter method that is used to set the name or change the name. So void setName, and within here we're going to need a string, and we'll use name again. And we're going to use the this that we used before because the variable that we're trying to set here is called name, and our argument's also called name. So we definitely want to use a this name equals name. That'll set the name of this object to whatever's in the argument there. And you'll notice that if you click it too, like it'll highlight what it's connected to. So when I highlight this.name, you'll see these ones light up, and if I highlight this one, you'll see that this one lights up, and that shows what it's connected to. So right here we're going to set the name, and I want to do a display of, just to show you what I did, change name to, And this is the this that I was talking about. So it's going to be a getter method, and it's going to return the name. So I haven't made the method yet, but I will in just a second. And how you do this is you put this in there. Now I just called a getName method. So I need to create a getName, and that will return a string. And since I'm calling this method with this as in the parameters as an argument, this getName method actually needs to take an object, and the object is of the person class. And what I want it to do is going to be return name. So this is going to change the name, setName, whatever I put in, it's going to become the name of this object, and then I want to get the name to display. So I'm going to call my getName method, and I'm going to pass this, which is passing the object, into the parameters, which is right here, and then since this method takes an object, this will return the name of that object. Now what I want to do is set name. So we're going to do person1, refer to that object, and we're going to go to set name, and that takes a string. So we'll just put Alex. And this is more complicated than it needs to be, because in reality you wouldn't need to call another method to return the name change, but I'm just doing it to show you how you can use the word this. So you'll see we created our first one, which was Andrew, and then we had our second one, which was default, which because it had no value, and then our third one we changed to Alex. And like I said before, we changed it. We used this to change this object's name variable, and then we called the getName with this, which is referring to the object, the object's data. We called the getName, and then this method was ran with the object's data in it, and then it returned the name of this object. And since we changed it to Alex, that's why it displays Alex at the end, and it displays that change name to Alex. So I hope that helps. I'll put this code in the description, and then also hopefully you're writing this down as I'm going, and play around with it a little bit, change a few things, and see if you can figure out how it works. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial.